about Pride colours acknowledging the LGBT community being on some of our Garda patrol cars. Her view is that it's a political statement, and she pointed out other marginalised groups, such as the travelling community, not being acknowledged in the same fashion. Noel, can I start with you on this one? Yeah. What do you make of that? The response yesterday was unbelievable.
Yeah, I suppose, thankfully, over the last decade, people that are gay, lesbian, or whatever have been allowed by society to find their voice and got the courage themselves to express the fact, yes, there are those of us in society who are gay or whatever, and there is nothing wrong with it. And that is great to see that openness and transparency come into Irish society, long overdue. However, there's still a lot of prejudice out there. Just because something is out in the open doesn't mean.
Of course.
On the question of the Garda car, part of me agrees. Like a Garda car is a national. There's a national symbol of Garda Siochana, the same with our defence forces. There's a national symbol.
Like if a private company want to put it out there, that's up to themselves.
Right.
But for something especially like a Garda car, which say you're out on patrol, you're dealing in the middle of the night where people have taken substances of all kinds, and people aren't thinking rationally, and they're looking for something to kind of.
But I would also say as well. Sorry, Fran. I would also say as well. Like I just wonder. And I haven't done any research at all of this, but I just wonder, is it has this applied in any other countries? Any other
that's
countries?
Interesting. I don't know that.
I just don't know, and I can certainly see Alice's point. And if you have, we'll say, a straight guard inside in a car that's marked with Pride, are they more prone to abuse?
Well, they've had homophobic slurs and comments.
Absolutely.
To them, yes,
no, that says something else as well about other aspects of society and all that.
There's a lot of yob culture around now, and that guard could become a target, and the guards in it could become victims. So I think there is
already
a political.
happened, by the way.
Yeah, has it?
Yes. Yeah.
Specifically, what I would be worried about, if you move it beyond the gay thing, is what other group will come along saying, now we want our message out
and
there
that was
as well.
Marion's point.
Does the Garda Síochána become the vehicle to deliver the message?
A billboard, as somebody put it yesterday.
Yeah.
Joe, as a former Garda, I'm particularly interested in your take on this.
Yeah, well, personally, I wouldn't have a problem, Fran, in the way it was, but I can certainly see Noel's point. You're setting precedent here by doing this. For what's next as such. And I suppose, yes, it is probably going a step too far in the sense of it is your national police force, and they're there, and they should be, to me, probably should be above all that. Having said that, I think there's a lot of members in the Garda Síochána that are gay and lesbian, and they would feel. I suppose that is a very welcome move for them, because they're in a job which historically they certainly wouldn't have been recognised, as for what they stood for. And I think it's but it's still very difficult to see, as no one has rightly pointed out, what's next.
Yes.
And it's also if any other group come out, let it be any group, let it be even, it's just say mental health, for example, if they come out and they say, well, now look, World Suicide Day is coming up on the 10th of September. We need to have, our logo on that.
Yes.
How can they say no, and how can they say yes?
And Alison, I'm not sure how scientific it is, but far and away the majority of people yesterday agreed with Marion on this.
I have a friend who works for a big multinational, and all their computers say their interface is all about pride. And he said, he says, I'm not homophobic. Obviously it became a discussion topic when this, was put on their systems. And he said, people are actually starting to get a bit sick of it now, because they feel it's being pushed upon them. And, say most people are fairly liberal and fairly, say straight thinking and talking. That I think, sometimes things can be overdone. Now, and I know to say, it's, there's breakthrough kind of with LGBTQ and that, but I think for some people they feel it a bit intrusive.
And I put that very point to Debbie yesterday from Daisha Pride, and her answer to me on that was interesting. She said, well, look, LGBT people are constantly confronted by straight images of heterosexual people, like images on TV, the TV shows, the movies and all of that kind of thing. We're constantly bombarded with that.
Maybe so, but I think in the latter, say, decade, there's definitely been a huge shift. Especially if you look at the soaps or any of that, you know, there is an awful lot of, you know, say LGBT.
Last word on this, Noel, before we move on.
Yeah, I think your response yesterday highlights the need for an ongoing conversation of openness and transparency on the whole gender issue and LGBT.